I'll request all of you all to kindly stay on mute and keep your videos on. It'll be nice for the panelists to see the people participating in this evening's program. So good evening, all of you once again. For most of Jiddu Krishnamurti's life, what he said and what sparked both interest and controversy. His observations on religion, nationalism, tradition, organizations, and relationships often ran counter to the convention of the day. If they are less startling today, it is either due to the effects his insights have had on common consciousness or an indication to the extent to which he was ahead of his time. But Krishnamurti's insights on education are still radical and frequently misunderstood or dismissed as impractical. This is probably due to the fact that Krishnamurti presents education as a religious activity in an age when most people still see it as preparation for succeeding in a secular world. Throughout the ages, sages have warned us that we can't see what is true even when it is presented to us because that which is true isn't what we expect or want to hear. The traditional Western symbol for this is choosing Barabbas, choosing what is familiar or most like us over what is true or sacred. This is as true in educational matters as in religious ones. Modern education is so obviously failing to solve the world's problems, is so rightly criticized for not meeting society's aspirations, and is so clearly unable to prepare people for the fundamental challenges of living. To solve these problems, we seem to need educational insights that marry the most profound learning possible with the everyday, the subtle with the mundane, or to put it in another way, the sacred with the secular. I feel Kay's insights into education are such a marriage. I feel they are radical, that they meet the challenges of living at a profound level, and they do so at a time when such insights are desperately needed. Of all the many subjects that Krishnamurti addressed in his more than 70 years of writing books and public speaking, I believe it is Krishnamurti's insights into education that people will eventually feel has had the greatest effect on the world. With these few words, I would request Kamalji to give an introduction for this evening and invite Harshadji for this magnificent session which we're going to have conducted by Sudeshna. We'll try to end by 7:30, and so we'll have an interaction for about 45 minutes, and from 7 to 7:30 we'll have an interaction with the audience. You're most free to put in your questions in the chat box in case you have something during the session or something which you have prepared for the meet. We will address them in the second part of the program. Kamalji, the floor is all yours.
So thanks, Sayan, and welcome to everybody, in particular to Harshad Bhai, Harshad Parekh. As you know, for the last few months, we've been having online programs, and we've had, just by chance, we've had a series of people who have not only been educators, but who have also been authors. And one is in fact with us today, that's Roshan Dalal. But today we have actually somebody who has been an educator through and through. So that gives us a very good opportunity to look at education in the way Krishnaji meant it to be. Not that it was, I don't know whether all that has happened. That's a different matter, whether the schools have achieved all that or have not achieved all that. But we have a chance to look at that through somebody who spent 28 years of his life in K schools. So who would have had a very close understanding of what Krishnaji's vision was all about. So we will, want to hear from him about his experience on the ground as a teacher. And today, we tried something different. Like normally we have, someone who just gives a talk. But today we thought it might be interesting to have another educator in conversation with Harshad Bhai. So that's how we requested our center friend and colleague. She's also a school teacher, Sudeshna Sinha. She's also had about 18 years of experience in teaching. So we asked her, whether she and Harshad Bhai could engage in a conversation. And the conversation could bring out all the things that, I mean, not only educators, but most of us would be interested in to understand clearly what Krishnaji's vision in education is all about, and how is it different from, the way anybody else sees it, the world sees education. So that's the program for this evening. And as Sayan said, we do want to have some interaction with with all of us after that session is over, after the conversation is over. So with that, over to you, Harshad Bhai, over to you, Sudesh.
Okay. So it is such a pleasure to be here this evening and to explore and learn Jiddu Krishnamurti's teachings and his vision about education with Harshad ji. I welcome you again, Harshad ji, on behalf of KFI Kolkata. About me, I'll just tell about a line because then you will relate to from where the questions which I have designed are coming. About me, I have been teaching for so many years now in so called good institutions. But in spite of everything, I often felt an unexplainable discontent deep in my heart over the years. But after I started reading Krishnamurti, my understanding of education, of life itself, started changing. So we have invited amongst us Harshad Parekh ji here, who has worked in various capacities in Rishi Valley School, Sahadri. So I would like to together explore certain aspects of Krishnamurti's teachings. And while I explore, I have also made certain slides which I will share with you. But as Shayun has already said, so while we are discussing things, you may either write down the questions and place it in the chat, then it will be easy for us to go through it and save time. So, Harshad ji, tell us a little bit about your sudden inclination as a student in the United States to give up all and to teach in Krishnaji schools. That turning point, what was it about? Do share with us.
Uh, yes, it was in 1972 that I had just completed my master's degree at Iowa State and started my PhD in the same department, electrical engineering. And so it was in 1972 that I was passing by the campus bookshop and I saw a book of Krishnamurti through the glass window. It was on display, and the title was The Flight of the Eagle. And at that, I liked the title of the book. And also, there was a small photograph of Krishnamurti that was also very good. But I did not know who was Krishnamurti at that time, whether he was alive or dead. But I was curious. So I bought that book. And when I started reading that book, the questions he was asking, as if he was asking me questions like, why do you think of yourself as an Indian or American or Chinese? Why do you think of yourself as Hindu or Muslim or Christian? Because at that time I was thinking of myself as an Indian and as a Hindu, and I was not able to relate well with people of many different nationalities and religion. And then Krishnamurti was asking other questions like why we go through so many problems of psychological problems like fear or anger, jealousy, loneliness. So, and then he was showing from where do this problem come, and he was saying that all these psychological problems, all this conditioning, it comes from thinking. And something he said like from thinking comes this sense of I or me, it comes from that. And once this sense of I comes, then we say, I like it, I don't like it. We try to change thinking. So there is a duality. So in Krishnamurti's words, thought creates the thinker, and thinker tries to change thought. And this duality between thinker and thought is the source from which all our psychological problems come. So this was completely very new to me, and I wanted to verify it. And if you want to verify what Krishnamurti was saying, you have to go right to the source of thinking, how it arises. One has to really watch, sit quietly, very, very attentively. And when I try to do that, I felt that my mind had stopped, and it was a wonderful state of no thinking, but the senses are functioning very well. And in that, there are no sense of I and no problems of any nature, psychological nature. So once I verified, then I felt that yes, what Krishnamurti says is true. And then it became very, very interesting for me to explore more and more. Then I read many books, and I also started writing letters to Krishnamurti. And there were some changes were happening in my life, in the quality of relationship with people, with nature. And I begin to see everything so beautiful, very clear. And it was like a new life came. And I read Krishnaji's books for about uh, 2, 3 years. And I completed my PhD in Iowa State. And then I went to Canada at University of Waterloo, where I was doing postdoctoral research in electrical engineering. And then in 1977, that means 5 years after I came to know about Krishnamurti, in 1977, I thought, let me go to California and listen to Krishnamurti in person. His books had really affected my life very deeply. I had no questions. I had written many letters also to him. So I went to California in 1977. I listened to him. I had a first meeting, non-verbal completely, just for a few seconds with him. And then I went back to Canada. And then again, 1978, I went again to Ohio to listen to Krishnaji. And again, I came back to Canada. So far, there was no idea of joining Krishnamurti school. And then 1979, I went to Ohio, and I thought that would be my last going to California. And at that time, something started happening in my way of looking, listening. And then there was some personal communion with Krishnaji. And that I felt that that was something remarkable change happened in my whole body and brain. And when I went back to Canada, then I could not sleep for 2 days. And it was very, very clear that my life is meant for Krishnamurti schools. So I wrote to him, and then he wrote me back. And then I met him in Brookwood Park in 1979. So it wasn't very sudden. And even in 1978, I had become a citizen of Canada because I had no idea of coming back to India. But then in 1979, I came to India, and then India has become my home. And I have been with Rishi Valley School. I joined in 79 November. And then Krishnaji was coming every year, and we had many dialogues with him. even had one-to-one dialogues with him also. So that is okay. Now if you have other questions, you can
Yeah,
ask.
that's wonderful. We are all people are all going to Canada to get the citizenship, and you sacrificed everything, left everything, and came out. So I have this slide which I want to share based on that. That's one. Yeah. So this is the first question.
Mm,
I have read that Krishnaji said that children must be rightly educated so that they
mm,
become religious human beings. He said that right education should help the student not only to develop his capacities but to understand his own highest interests. That is the intent of education.
mm,
So, what according to you is
mm.
Krishnaji's like intent of education? If you could tell us something about it.
Yeah. Uh, Krishnaji gives a lot of importance to understanding our own mind because students in schools and colleges they learn so many subjects like physics, mathematics, chemistry, and they learn all these subjects through their mind and through intellect. But it seems that most of the students, even teachers, they don't know what this mind is, how the thoughts, thinking arising, how problems in relationship come, like conflict in relationship, and so many conditioning which we have. So our life is mostly lived in thinking about the outer world and gathering a lot of knowledge, and then that knowledge is through that we look at everything. So it happened to me also because when I was very young, I used to see things very beautiful, like a flower, rose flower, and a dewdrop on it, and the sunlight falling on it, and the dewdrop shining like a diamond. And but then I studied in schools and colleges. I acquired a lot of knowledge about engineering, and that way of looking fresh without thinking that went away. And then the mind was full of problems of what I was going to do in future or what happened something in the past. And so most human beings are living in that way. They don't come in direct touch with their own thinking and see it very clearly from a different dimension, which is what Krishnamurti calls awakening of awareness or intelligence, which can see everything very, very clearly, even how the problems are coming in relationship, like when anger is coming, to be in touch with oneself, an ongoing effortless awareness. That is what he was saying. And so his aim was to create a new brain in schools, in Rishi Valley and other schools, even in teachers. And then he felt that this learning of various subjects is not enough just to pass examinations, but to look at the whole world, the outer world as well as the inner world. And if we are not clear within ourselves, then whatever we do, we create more problems. So this psychological revolution, which he was talking about, and from that comes the global way of looking, holistic way of living. And from that, natural discipline comes, order comes, and everything what we do in our daily life is very, very important, how we do it and with clarity. So that is what Krishnaji wanted: freedom, psychological freedom, order, discipline, and freedom from all the conditioning, nationalistic, religious conditioning, which divides us. And then that deeper, the sense of I or me, which also divides us from. So you are the world, that is Krishnamurti's sentence, to really feel it directly, not intellectually. You are the world, that means sensitivity coming in our life. Okay.
Right. So I have a few more questions, like this: what is education? Like in normal schools or in general schools, education is about knowledge, about success, and at the most there'll be some moral values based on various organized religions. It's about getting 90% math, science. But here Krishnamurti is saying something entirely different about what is education. He says intelligence is the capacity to perceive the essential, the what is, and to awaken this capacity in oneself and in others is education. So Harshad, I would like you to go into what is education, like, according
Yeah, the root meaning of the word education means to bring out the essence of living. And Krishnaji said that not only we should have academic excellence, but also excellence in living, how we do anything, how we speak, how we listen, how we look. And so when Krishnaji was talking with students, he was coming every year in December to Rishi Valley, and also he was coming to Rajghat also. And he was asking this question: how do you look at that tree? How do you look at your friend? What he was trying to indicate is that there is a different way of looking, listening, learning. Not learning by memorizing, just accepting what the teacher is saying or what the textbook is saying, but one has to understand and question it. Like even when teachers go to classroom, students have the opportunity to stop the teacher. And even if a teacher is making some mistake in the classroom, student can point out that, sir, this is not right. And the teacher can also learn in this process by asking question, learning together. So it is not like in other schools, the teacher gives notes and people write down and they memorize and then they reproduce in the examination. But here in Krishnamurti school, it is the questioning. So even students, young students, were questioning Krishnaji. They were not afraid. Like when Krishnaji asked, can you look at that tree without thinking, without knowledge? And then that boy, class 8 boy, he was sitting with Krishnaji and he asked, can you really look at that way? And Krishnaji says, of course, otherwise I will not be talking about this. So it is more awakening of intelligence. That is what Krishnaji was talking about. And intelligence means to see the essence is to read between the lines. What is when you read something, what is trying to say when you read something, or when somebody is speaking, what is the meaning behind it? Like one artist had come to Krishnaji to discuss something, and the artist was very much depressed. And then they had a dialogue, and Krishnaji believes in this kind of one-to-one dialogue. And in that dialogue, Krishnaji said, the word parrot has blocked you from looking at the thing which flies. So we don't look at the bird, we look at through the knowledge. So this can be understood or it can be felt when a person also begins to look without the knowledge. I think most students and teachers did not really understood why Krishnaji was asking, how do you look? But there is something great. And the whole thing is to develop not only intellect, and intellect is very good in students, but there is something higher than intellect, is called intelligence. And when that intelligence comes in our life, then our life becomes very, very enjoyable, very creative, happy, healthy. And then there are no problems. That awakening of intelligence is what Krishnaji wanted. So that is the attempt was made in this Krishnamurti schools to create an environment where students and teachers can have a dialogue together about the inner world, what is happening within us. When we get angry, what is behind the anger? Why we get angry? Is it a different way of responding, not reacting? So there are some students also get sometimes feel very lonely or boredom. So what is boredom? What is loneliness? From where it comes? What is love? What is attachment? What is meditation? We all, the school is meant to go deeper into these questions. Of course, academic subjects are there, and sports and music and dance and all this activity goes on. But in some teachers who are deeply interested in Krishnamurti's teachings, they take culture class and discuss with students. And even a teacher has the freedom to discuss, like when I was teaching physics, I can relate physics with metaphysics, what Krishnamurti is talking about, and trying to connect it with physics. So it is much more than just academic learning and passing examination and doing very good in examination, much more than that. Okay, yes.
Yeah, this is this profound thing, which we kind of miss in the normal schools, general schools that we have. Okay, this I'll go to the next question. Okay, yeah. The next question is about like the purpose of education, basically. So Krishnamurti often stated that the purpose of education is to bring about freedom, love, the flowering of goodness. He used this word, flowering of goodness. Education, in the true sense, is helping the individual to be mature and free, to flower greatly in love and goodness. That is what we should be interested in. and not in shaping the child according to some idealistic pattern. The normal, the other schools, we know, we emphasize on the young people getting materialistic successful. So I would like to ask you, what could K have meant by this word flowering of goodness as a goal of education? What do you think about it?
Yes, when we see a tree which is full of flowers, you must have seen some trees. They look very, very beautiful. And sometimes there is only flowers on the on the tree. So that kind of flowering goodness, it means really a freedom from all the negative emotions which happen in our life, like getting angry or feeling lonely or boredom or jealousy, all the negative qualities which make our life very, very difficult and create so many problems in relationship, to be free from that. And that can happen only when we can really look directly within ourselves, the source from where all these problems come. So finally, it comes down to being alone and being very attentive and looking inward to see how these thoughts are coming and going, and allowing it to pass by without any interference, what Krishnaji calls choiceless awareness. And so, in order for students, they can do it anytime, but we do it twice in the school, like after assembly, after the singing is over, everybody keeps silence, the whole school sitting together, and for about 3-4 minutes, everybody is very silent. And in that silence, we can really look what is happening within us. And also in the evening, they have astachal, where they look at the sunset, the whole school comes. And the idea is not to talk with each other, sitting quietly and trying to come in direct touch within ourselves. So there is a whole uh, routine in the school, but the school has created a beautiful environment with a lot of space and trees and nice people and everything taken care of. So the schools are ideal places for learning about what Krishnamurti is saying. And there are good people there. Then it depends on the sensitivity of teachers and students, whether they are able to catch something from the silence in the valley, from nature. Because the real learning, I think it happens not through talking, but through observation in an unconscious way. Okay, so I have answered. Any more question?
Yeah, yeah, there is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of questions now. We go now to something very, you already mentioned about it, but just 1 minute. I wish you were close to it. Yeah, this is about the culture classes. Okay, teachers and students hold discussions on themes relating to life, on subjects, on fear. You mentioned about it: pleasure, hurt, ambition, cooperation, and responsibility at various levels of understanding. Their everyday experiences which the children have with their peer groups in class or the media, they have discussions, open discussions. So you mentioned about the culture classes, and
Yeah.
there's a special bit here. Shayon,
Mm,
Shayon,
Yep.
just 1 minute. Let me stop the share.
mm,
माना अपनी जेब से फकीर है
फिर भी यार दिल के हम अमीर हैं, मिटे जो प्यार के लिए वो जिंदगी, जले बाहर के लिए वो जिंदगी, किसी को हो ना हो हमें तो एतबार, जीना इसी का नाम है। रिश्ता दिल से दिल के एतबार का, जिंदा है हम ही से नाम प्यार का, रिश्ता दिल से दिल के एतबार का, जिंदा है हम ही से नाम प्यार का, के मर के भी किसी को याद आएंगे, किसी के आंसुओं में मुस्कुराएंगे, कहेगा फूल हर कली से बार बार, जीना इसी का नाम है, किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार।
So, Sam, can I just pop in a little bit?
Yes, Kamalji.
Harshad bhai, I just wanted to tell you,
Yeah.
you know, I had gone to my sister's place, Harsha, you know, Harsha is sitting here, and I had gone to her place, and she was saying that, you know, her son was there, and he was remembering the culture classes. He said Harshad bhai had, Harshad sir had a wonderful way of actually doing culture classes. He was fond of Mukesh, and some Mukesh songs were being played about, you know, during culture classes. Tell us about that. We loved that idea, Harshad bhai.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Something about
No, this culture class is for about 40 minutes, and in the last 10 minutes, I show them 2 or 3 songs, which is about, like, this is about love or how to live, about beauty of nature, and about our mind also. Like, there's a beautiful song called Tora Man Darpan Kehlaye. It says that the our happiness and unhappiness depends on the quality of our mind, and we can escape from the world, but we cannot escape from our own mind. So it is, and when there is a light in the mind, the whole world appears very bright and beautiful. So such songs about beauty of nature, about the mystery of life, creation, about happiness, love. So I try to show them through such songs that life is meant for happiness, and it is possible for us to be really happy, healthy, and creative every day if we give attention to what is happening within us. That means the ability to sit quietly and look at our inner world, and learning in a direct way, not by reading Krishnamurti. Maybe, yes, Krishnamurti books can help, but that would be, if we don't live that way, then it is just a intellectual knowledge, and it doesn't help when anger or fear comes. But here the beauty is that when fear comes, we can look at it, the beginning of a fear. And so I have come across snakes and panther, and I have looked at them without just looking, you know. So there is, when we understand ourselves, we understand other human beings also, and we can avoid many problems which we create for ourselves. Because most of the problems of relationship, it we are the creator of the problem. So if we understand, then we can be free, and then we can really understand what Krishnamurti is talking about, what is love, what is beauty, because generally people think that this attachment or attraction to somebody, that is love, but that is not. Attachment is completely different than love, because in love there is no negativity. It is not demanding anything from the other person. But in attachment, there is a jealousy, there is a fear. Like sometimes I tell them the story of Romeo and Juliet. It's considered to be a love story, but in my view, it was not love. They committed suicide. A person who really loves cannot do such thing, cannot harm anybody, even psychologically. So love means freedom, freedom from the self. And that is what Krishnaji says, happiest time I had to be, and every day can be very happy, if we really understand ourselves. So Krishnamurti's teachings are mostly about learning, art of looking, listening, learning and living, how we live. So Jina ise ka naam hai, like that.
So
Right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Such a classes, and even you said about Astachal watching the sunset, it is
Yeah.
like very different from,
Mm.
and it's a need, like present day there's so much of violence. Okay, I'll go to my other contrast which I feel in the schools where I have been teaching. It's about discipline. Okay, in the normal schools, say there are around 50 students and one teacher, and we usually instill fear on the child, on the students, which according to Krishnamurti, it kills creative intelligence, their sensitivity to the whole. So, but Krishnamurti says discipline means something entirely different. He says it
Yes.
means to learn, not to conform, not to
Yeah.
suppress, not to
Mm.
imitate the pattern of accepted authority. So, this
Right.
is a very complex question. So, I would like to ask you, what should be the nature of discipline in schools?
Mm.
Uh,
Yes. You know, the the word disciple means student, and disciple is a student is someone who has discipline, because without discipline one cannot learn anything, and in our school we don't like to impose discipline by authority, by introducing fear. Like in other schools, students may be afraid of being punished, and the teacher has the authority. But here in our school, we try to see that discipline comes from within through learning. And because uh, learning is very much related to discipline. Without discipline, one cannot learn anything. And so, for this to happen, there has to be a very good relationship with people, between students and teachers. And this is a very good thing about Krishnamurti schools, that the relationship between teachers and students is very, very friendly. And so, um, most of the time, a teacher doesn't need to tell much, doesn't need to shout at students if students are making noise. A teacher, if has some understanding of Krishnamurti, when a teacher sees that students are making a lot of noise or not behaving properly, the teacher can go to the student and put his hand on the student's shoulder and say, let's settle down, because if everybody is very much restless, we cannot learn anything. So how we do anything, the responsibility is mostly on the teacher to create such an environment where there is a good relationship between students and teachers, and so that life becomes much easier. So there is authority in the functional sense, but not in psychological sense in the school. So if a teacher makes a mistake in teaching a subject or in something in the daily life, suppose a teacher is late to the class, a student can point out that we are late because you are late or something like that. So a teacher has a great responsibility to create an atmosphere where we can learn together through dialogues. And being a residential school, we have a lots of opportunity to discuss with students in the hostel also, because I was a housemaster also, and looking after 20 students, and see that they do everything, keep the house in proper order. So it is a way of living. And people who are not interested in teaching and learning, then they will go away from the school because it is very tiring. One needs a lot of patience and affection with students in order to really enjoy. And the teacher can also enjoy if the teacher enjoys teaching as well as learning. So learning is for everybody. Yeah.
So,
So teachers are also uh, students. Yeah. Okay.
so I'm coming to the next question. Just 1 minute. Since you're talking about teachers, let me talk about the teachers here. Uh, Authority is related to discipline. Let me go to this. Educating the educator. So in general schools, it is the teacher's qualification, their basis of knowledge, which sets them apart. But Krishnamurti says that there should be a certain religiosity even in educators. They should be religious in his sense, not in the normal sense. So he says that it is the educator who needs educating. The true teacher is not one who merely imparts information. He must first be rooted in self knowledge and committed to bringing about a radical change in himself as a human being. But then he says our problem is not so much with the child, but the educator who needs educating much more than the pupil. And he says that it was quite difficult. So here I would like to ask you that since you've also been the principal of Sahadri School for several years, so what was your did you face any challenge regarding this educating the educator? That you may have faced with teachers. Tell us something about it. And do you have any
Yeah.
message for teachers
Okay.
this mind educating the educator? Right?
Yes. Okay. In our schools, we have dialogues among teachers, staff meeting. So in 1 week, one meeting, we have about Krishnamurti's teachings, how it is connected with everything about learning about ourselves, and then we have a dialogue. So um, many teachers, when they join this school, they don't know anything about Krishnamurti. They are very good in their subject and they have a good experience teaching a subject, but they don't know anything about what Krishnamurti is saying. So that is why we meet once a week, all the teachers, staff meeting, and we discuss about. what Krishnamurti is saying, what what is the aim, what is the our purpose in these schools, what we are trying to do, and how we do everything. So in that way, the teachers also begin to learn, new teachers begin to learn. And so there is no any guidance given. And if there are some problems with some teachers, then the principal or the headmaster can call that teacher if there is a problem of not going to classes in time or not teaching the subject properly, or students complaining, or students making a lot of noise, then that teacher can be called separately and discuss with them and give them some suggestion about how to go about it, you know. So mostly we try to do it in a very friendly way. Try, and when did not want to become a principal because it's not in my nature to do any administrative work. But then they said that there was nobody and there was emergency. So I said, okay, I will be there for 1 year. So during that 1 year, we used to discuss, and also any other principal, or we continuously have dialogues about how to do things, how to behave with students or among teachers. So learning is happening through dialogues and relating with each other.
Yeah. So you said there is no fixed guideline given by Krishnamurti as to what is to be done exactly. Uh, so, uh, so why is it in this context only? Why is it so difficult to make his vision of education a living reality in schools? I mean, is it
Yeah,
very difficult? And the next
yeah,
question I will just put in together. By and large, what, according to you, do you think K schools have met the demands of the vision which Krishnamurti was did see?
yeah. In Krishnamurti's view,
Mhm.
the school, he once said that these are first class ordinary school, he said. That means everything is taken care of, and there is academic excellence is there, and uh, food and other music, sports, arts and crafts. There is a overall development is there, but as far as the teachings, the depth of understanding what Krishnamurti was saying, that has not happened in the life of most of the students and teachers also, because uh, most of the students, they don't come to these schools because they are interested in Krishnamurti's teachings. Even teachers, they come because it is a very beautiful place and very good nature, and everything is taken care of. So, and if some teachers have children, they want to educate their children, and if they have worked somewhere else and have earned enough money, so they come to the school. And also now the salaries are also very good. When I joined Rishi Valley, it was only some 500 rupees or something like that. And the school was not in a very good financial condition. But now the school is doing very well, all the schools. And according to the Educational World magazine, Rishi Valley is number one school among uh, co-educational residential school. Similarly, Sayadri School, Rajghat School, Valley School. they are all very good schools in India. And so many parents want to educate their children because of very good environment, and student may not get spoiled like in other schools. Students can start smoking or drinking drugs and all those. So the uh, life is taken care of in a very good way, but the essence about understanding the human mind and being free and living a very healthy, happy, creative life after leaving the school. Because after leaving the school, students say that they had a very good time, they were very happy, and it was the best time in their life. But many of them, they get addicted to smoking, drinking, and even Krishnaji met some old students and teachers, and he felt that they really did not catch what the school, what he wanted to do. So the intent of the school is the intent of Krishnaji, but I don't think it was the intent of students or parents or teachers. Some few people came to these schools because they were deeply interested in Krishnamurti teachings, but majority they came because it was a nice place.
You mean to say the transformation of mind did not take place much?
Yes, yes. Because it depends, it cannot be taught. This thing, psychological thing, one can talk about it,
Right.
but what the person gets. So even some people can get it even without talking with Krishnamurti or without reading the book. Some people can get it. Yeah.
Okay. So I have come to the end of my questions. Now we open it up to others.
That
So if
was
others have questions,
that was
Shayon.
perfectly well timed, and thank you so much for that. It was quite a interesting conversation which you all had. I think before I've got one or two coming into the chat. I think while I have a look at that, I would just like to ask a couple of questions. Now, these questions are based on uh, some of the quotes which have been accumulated over the years, and Kay has been mentioning this time and again. So perhaps you could give us a bit of clarity on this, Harshaji, if it's possible. The first quote of his, which really strikes me, is really very pertinent, saying, to ask the right question is far more important than to receive the answer. And the solution of the problem lies in the understanding of the problem. The answer is not
Yeah.
outside the problem, it is the problem. So if you could just
Yes,
highlight a bit on that.
yes. Uh, so my question is whether this question has it come naturally or it has been asked artificially in just order to investigate intellectually. So when the question is really genuine question, like why I am like this, why anger is coming, or why I get bored or tired. When the question is very genuine, then one doesn't need to discuss it. One then the whole mind is attentive to the question itself, and it may happen that the mind may even stop. And in that, there is some learning happens unconsciously, non-verbally. So real learning is not through words, it is non-verbal. So even when I was reading Krishnamurti initially, I was reading only for 10 minutes and then I will close the book and I forget everything what Krishnamurti had said. And I either close my eyes or just look what is happening in my mind. So in that way, I was learning in a direct way, not through intel, through the words of Krishnamurti, but can, the words have the power to lead one to non-verbal looking if the person is very, very genuinely interested. Generally, what happens that people are doing like a scholarly work and they try to connect what Krishnamurti has said here with what he has said that, and then they say there is a contradiction. At one time, Krishnamurti is saying this, that learning is effortless, and then sometimes he says you have to work very hard. So all this scholarly learning is not good. On the contrary, it prevents the real learning. So that is why Krishnaji says it is the freedom from the known, not learning through words and trying to connect what he's saying. And so that is the difficulty. And some people told me that they made a mistake in reading Krishnamurti because after reading Krishnamurti, they felt that what Krishnamurti says is true, but they cannot live that way. So it creates a conflict between what is and what they like to be. And so that becomes added problem, conflict. And so Krishnamurti also says that if you really don't live this way, then what you learn, it will become like a poison. And when Krishnamurti was talking once, one lady got up in the meeting and she said, don't listen to this man. He is very dangerous. And then she left the meeting. And after Krishnamurti was very silent. And then Krishnaji said, what she said is true, that if you really understand intellectually, but you cannot live this way, then it will create more problems. Some people don't get sleep at night because something goes on in their mind, and Krishnamurti doesn't give any method, and he discards all the methods, so it becomes very difficult. And some people had to go to psychologists also.
It's a very
So
interesting thing you said. That's right. So the
yeah,
second question I was trying to ask, based on just what you said, is Kay had also mentioned this: to understand life is to understand ourselves, and that is both the
yes,
beginning and the end of education. So in various
Right.
ways, you've answered that question so beautifully. So that's so important. Uh, is there anybody who wants to ask a question? The floor is open. Provida, would you like to ask any question?
Anybody can ask.
If someone doesn't, I will ask another question. Yeah.
No, I have one question for Harshadji.
Yes.
yeah.
Harshadji, I'm Joita Banerjee. Yeah, okay. Okay, Harshadji, there is one question about uh, the K schools. I'm very much interested in the K schools. I want to visit there. I want to see how the method they follow. Maybe there is
Yeah.
no method, but no method. If there is no method, I want to see that also. But one question recently, I had recommended to my a friend of mine for his son, the Bishi Valley School or any K school for his son's education. And he would be admitted in class 6. But that friend of mine asked me a very important question that about the affordability. Affordability, and he said that he won't be able to afford the education. And then that question that came to my mind because I teach in a rural school where I have more than 70% first generation rural learners. So what is going to happen if there is a division? Is
Mhm.
doesn't that Rishi Valley schools or Valley schools are like all the schools that create a elite group of students, elite
Mhm.
group of
Mhm. Yeah.
learners? Then how, if
Uh-huh.
it is only supposed to reach the classes, how am I
Mhm.
going to reach to the masses with K's, not K's, I want to introduce K to the masses also. But how would I
Mhm.
do that?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, the school has some scholarship for parents who cannot afford the full fees, and also if a teacher can is interested in going to the school and observing, there is you can write to the school, and now they have started a program for prospective educators. It started in Valley School, which goes on for 3-4 months, and there were 12 people were there, and those who want to teach in Krishnamurti schools, they go through some kind of guidance, and they also go to classroom, and they observe how other teachers teaching, and so you can also join that program if you like, because I don't know how much money they are charging, but that would be the best way. And that kind of program, educating the educators before joining Krishnamurti schools, it has started in the Valley School, and then they visit other Krishnamurti schools also. So in that way, they get some idea, and then they decide whether, and the school also decide whether they would like to be a teacher in the schools. And about some people who are deeply interested in Krishnamurti, they they can learn directly from Krishnamurti's books, and whatever you learn, you can teach to students from your personal experience anywhere in the world. So it is not necessary to teach in KFI school anybody who is deeply, and now there are some people are opening their own small schools who are interested in Krishnamurti, and some of their friends, they get together with their children, and they are learning in that way. So yes, I agree that most of the students are coming from rich family or higher middle class family. And Krishnamurti was saying that we are not talking about rich people and poor people. We are talking about the human mind, and the human mind is same whether rich or poor, because all people are suffering. Rich people are suffering from psychological problems, and poor people are also suffering. And to learn about that, our own mind, and to be free, one can pick up a book. Even one book is enough, and one can learn directly. That is the way I learned from Krishnamurti. And I did not know also that he had schools, and I was learning by just reading and applying it in the daily life activities. So may I did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And you have touched a soft corner because when you say that there are friends coming together, opening up a school, I think I can share it here. I dream of having a K school, means a school soaked in the essence of K's teaching here at Bakuda. I just want it very, and I want it very badly, because I have seen schools here. Bakuda is famous in West Bengal. Bakuda is famous for students are succeeding in the board examinations and all those things. But somehow I'm being, because I am in the education sector, I know how they are only accumulating knowledge. They are learning nothing.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
is my dream also, that I want a school at Bakuda with soaked in case, essence of case teachings.
Yeah.
Maybe
Thank you.
someday it will happen, and I'll definitely contact you at that time.
And Sudeshna can
Yeah.
be a local point of contact. Thank you for the.
Yes, she is there,
Uh,
and I am learning.
Hello.
yeah. And I
Hello.
myself, yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
I-
Hello. Hello.
I'm Prabir Kumar Banerjee.
Hello.
I'm Prabir Kumar. I have a question, sir.
Yes,
So,
you can.
without sounding elitist, or rather, without taking an elitist posture, my question is whether it is at all possible or whether it is at all necessary to take case teaching to the masses, because it is the mass political leaders, but
Right.
was K a mass education leader?
That K is addressing to the human mind, and it is mostly individual. Though Krishnamurti was talking with a group of people, and they were coming on their own, those who were interested. So it is not for the masses, but Krishnamurti says that when you change, when you transform, the it affects humanity in some way. At least to people around you, you will be beginning to affect by the way how you live. So it is for the individual, but the individual, and as Krishnamurti says, you are the world, and when you change, the world changes to that extent. So it has been always like that. Even Buddha could affect few people around him, and any teacher, spiritual teacher, whether Ramakrishna or Raman Maharshi or any, it is individual. Spiritual journey is for, or psychological journey is not for everybody. Very few people are really interested. Very few people can really sit alone and not escape from their own mind and look and not get frightened what they see inside, because most people get frightened when they look inside, because there are all this negativity is frightening. It's like a snakes guarding a beautiful treasure. Within us, there is treasure buried, but around it, there are snakes. So when we look inward, we see all these disturbing things. If we don't get disturbed, we just want to be very curious, we can really understand and be free from all this negativity. And then we can really touch something very, very beautiful within us. Like Mirabai say, Ram Ratan Dhan Payo, Kharche na Kute, Chor na Lute, Din Din Badat Savayo. Like there is a treasure buried within us which cannot be stolen by anybody, and it increases day by day. So that kind of treasure, even Kabir, he said, Tere paas hire moti, mere man mandir mein jyoti, kaun hua dhanwan. So inside us, there is great richness uh, is there, but we are searching for outside and think that if I get this, if I get a lottery, I will get this um, something, money, power, position, I will be happy. It's not like that. People who have money, power, position, they are also very unhappy. They have many fears and loneliness and all that problem. So
That's so
yes,
beautifully said. That's so beautifully said. And
So
things
I
that
have one observation here. Most of the
mhm,
K schools like Sahadri, Rajghat, Rishi Valley, they reach out to the rural community around them. Uh, so maybe not to about it's not about his teachings, but they do reach out
yeah,
to the rural community around them, which I
yes,
find quite beautiful. So
yes, yes,
when we say it is not about masses, the schools themselves have less number of people in each classroom. Otherwise, the relationship between the child and the teacher cannot be maintained. But each of the schools they reach out so much to the rural people outside them. I have seen.
yeah,
So this
right.
really this
Yeah,
observation.
it is for rural school, it is only up to junior school level, up to maximum seventh standard, and they are teaching in their mother tongue, Telugu or whatever language, and mostly they are teaching various subjects. They are not teaching about the Krishnamurti's teachings. It's more like a social work, helping people, give them free education and medical help also they give to villagers around. So it is a part of social work, a social responsibility, and also doing planting trees and environmental work. School is doing all these schools.
Ashit, there's a question from Adin. I think I'll just read this out. Is case teachings is not based on continuity, whereas normal schools as well as society are based on tradition as continuity. How do K
Mhm.
schools deal with this and prevent fossilization as idea or
Mhm.
tradition?
Mhm.
Adin has asked this question.
No, yeah, no, continuity is there in our life, in our thinking, and only when this thinking stops, if there is a gap between two thoughts, then there is some learning can happen. So I don't think that in tradition there is continuity and in Krishnamurti's teachings there is no continuity. It's not like that. Continuity is there in our mind, and our mind continuously keeps on thinking unconsciously. Chattering is going on unconsciously. So there is a possibility, what Krishnamurti says is that there is a possibility to come in direct touch, and then there is some kind of discontinuity happens, and in that there is some insight happens between two thoughts. When there is a silence, when there is a attention, we learn something of real value which changes our life. So that is the way I looked at continuity. Continuity is there in every human being's life, but one can break through that.
So beautifully said. Thank you.
Mm.
And I think we've just about to end our session, so that we could take a last question if anyone has that before we'll ask Kamalji to do a wrap up. Does anyone have a question? Until such,
I have a question.
yes, Pravita.
I have a question. Shall I ask?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Hello.
yes,
Well,
yes.
my question is that you are telling that each of us has got a treasure at the very sanctum sanctorum of his existence, of his mind.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yes,
Now, is it so the real self? But when someone asks K about real self, he denied the existence of real self, and he said that it is a construct of thought. It's the construct of imagination. Now,
yes,
is that treasure which you had been referring to, is
yes.
it quite akin to the real self or something different?
Yes, what people call real self in tradition, also they call it witness, and Krishnamurti uses the word choiceless awareness. They all are pointing something different than thinking. And uh, in Krishnamurti, the self means self created by thinking. and that is not the true self. And that self, which is ego, is creating many, many problems in relationship. Because I want this, I want that. That sense is self, false self created. So it is just the question of using different words, different teachers use different words for the same thing. And Krishnamurti uses choiceless awareness, which is different than thinking. And Raman Maharshi uses true self, which is different than the false self created by thinking. So there is this treasure is true self or choiceless awareness. When it comes, thinking doesn't create conflict. Thinking can go on without creating any problem. It is like when you travel with the speed of light, time stops in Einstein's theory of relativity. The chronological time stops. Similarly, when a person moves with thought, thinking, moving with what is, then there is no sense of psychological time. And in that, things are seen as they are. And that is all. That is learning. That tells us everything we need to learn. And in that, there is no I, separate I coming and looking. You know.
Absolutely.
So this is the beauty. Yeah.
So well said. So I think Kay has
Yeah.
also mentioned this, saying that intelligence is the capacity to perceive the essential, the what is, and to awaken this
Yes.
capacity oneself and in others is education. So that's how he's defined education very, very brilliantly. And there's something else which you said was so nice, Harshaji, which I think I'll just repeat so that everyone can just get this gist of what you said. In oneself lies the whole world. And if you know how to look and learn, the door is there and the key is in your hand. Nobody on earth can give you
Right.
either the key or the door to open except yourself. This is what you have summarized in that in just in the last 10 minutes, which you said so beautifully, that it stays with the child, with the
Yeah.
education system. So that is so purposeful in what you have said. Uh, I think we have just about coming to an end. Sudeshna, is there anything else which you would like to tell us, or should we ask Kamalji to come on board?
Yeah, Kamalji.
Kamalji, I would expect
Yep, yep,
if you
yep.
can just.
So just first of all, big thanks to Harshad Bhai. And it was a real delight, Harshad Bhai, to listen to you today, because there are some people who have oratorial skills, some people who have language skills. But I think you have actually got something very special. It's the language of the heart. And I think when I look at this video again and when other educators see it, I hope they see the message that is underlying the whole program today, because it was very beautiful. In so many ways, you've actually summed up things and made things so much clearer for everybody. Thanks to Sudeshna. Sudeshna, thank you for being part of this program with Harshad Bhai, because that helped things a lot. And because when two educators get together in conversation, the results are bound to be good. Thanks to everybody else,
Thank you.
who came today and was part of this program, and hope that we can actually build on this and get more education programs going. And as we have done earlier, when I send an email after this, uh, that Harshad Bhai will be open to questioning, to any questions that you want to send by email. I think we can send it to Harshad Bhai. He will actually respond at some point. But meanwhile, thanks to everybody. Thanks Harshad Bhai, especially from all of us.
Thank you.
I hope
Thank
to
you.
see you soon.
And just to add to this is we will have this video compiled in a MP4 format, and Kamalji will put this up on YouTube so that others can view it who couldn't join us from across. I think Ricardo did manage to get in finally. He was there with us right through, and some others
Yes.
across the continent who couldn't come. I think Ricardo can share this. I think Adin has also come on, so that was nice. So we've had
Yeah.
we had total participation of 20 people, so that was very interesting. And thank you everyone for coming across at different time zones. So we will have this up on YouTube.
I have one suggestion. At least once in 2 months, if not once a month, we should have a dialogue based on education. So it's basically for us adults, it's not for children.
That's true.
So we should have, and if we have it like this from KFI Kolkata, then it's like
That's a very good
it's
spirit.
better. Yeah.
And today, Sad, the highlight of the program was the lovely Mukesh song, which was a favorite for
That
Harshad bhai.
was a surprise which was given. Yeah, that was Kamal.
That was the highlight for me.
Surprise. Yes, it was lovely, really. Yeah, and
Thank you so much, Harshad bhai. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
everybody else. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.